I'm excited to welcome you all to the fourth and final breakfast briefing of 2019. My name is Hunter Hill. I am a member of the BGR Board of Directors, and I'm chairman of the Breakfast Briefings Committee. BGR is a nonprofit, nonpartisan public policy research firm dedicated to informed policymaking and the effective use of public resources. BGR's reports identify opportunities and solutions on high-leverage issues in local government. We also monitor more than 70 government entities across Jefferson, Orleans, and St. Tammany parishes. BGR's goal is the improvement of government in the greater New Orleans area. Our breakfast briefings further BGR's mission by allowing citizens and policymakers to discuss issues that affect all of our lives. We hope you will take advantage of the question and answer portion of today's program. On your seat or at your table is a flyer with instructions for submitting questions using the Slido app. Today's event code is 4153. Again, that's 4153. If you prefer to write your question, please hand it to a BGR staff member and include your name if you'd like to be identified. The best way to stay on top of all BGR events and research is to become a member. We regularly engage with our members about our public policy work. BGR values this dialogue, and we appreciate our members' support in amplifying BGR's good government recommendations. If you're not currently a member, we'd love for you to visit our website, it's bgr.org, and consider joining the ranks of concerned citizens working to improve local government. And now to introduce our topic is Dennis Woltering. You know Dennis as WWL-TV's former news anchor. He continues to serve our community and is an active member of the BGR board. Thank you, Dennis, for joining us today. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Hunter. Good morning. I'd like to express my gratitude to Iberia Bank for its generous sponsorship of BGR's Breakfast Briefing Series in 2019. Their support allows BGR to make these events free and open to the public. I would also like to acknowledge BGR's President and CEO, Amy Levinsky, and BGR's award-winning staff. They do a fantastic job planning and executing these quarterly events. The Mississippi River and the Gulf Coast waters are integral to our way of life in South Louisiana. They are avenues of commerce for business in the region, and they provide access to a wealth of natural resources the nation depends on. They connect us to the world, but they also expose us to threats, including hurricanes and tropical storms. One agency with a critically essential role in managing these waterways and the opportunities and risks they present is the U.S. Coast Guard. The Coast Guard's 8th District is at the center of it all. Headquartered in New Orleans, the district is perhaps the most complex in the nation, spanning all or part of 26 states, the Mississippi River system, plus the Gulf Coast and its ports. The Coast Guard plays a critical role in maritime commerce, national security, disaster response, environmental safety, and many other areas. On July 23rd, Rear Admiral John Netto took command of the 8th District. He comes to New Orleans by way of Washington, D.C., where he was responsible for oversight and program management for all Coast Guard commercial vessel inspections, marine casualty investigations, navigation services, commercial regulations and standards, as well as other duties, if you believe that. A native of Maine, Admiral Netto began his career as a cadet at the Coast Guard Academy in 1985 and graduated in 1989. His educational background includes advanced degrees in mechanical engineering and naval architecture and marine engineering. He also earned a master's degree in Homeland Security and Defense from the Naval Postgraduate School. He has specialized in marine safety, security, and environmental protection for most of his career. Here today to discuss the important work of the 8th District and the challenges it faces, its new commander, Rear Admiral John Netto. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Well, good morning. On Saturday, when many of us were getting ready for our tailgates, have a good time, some Coast Guard men and women were gathered up in Baton Rouge to honor, pay tribute to the crew of the White Alder, which sank 51 years ago. 17 Coast Guard men and women were lost in that tragedy, only 3 survived. It was sailing down the Mississippi and was struck by a vessel that was upbound. The White Elbow was home port right here in New Orleans from 1947 to 1968. Also on Saturday, again, many of us were cooking up our chili, whatever we're going to eat for the tailgater. We got a phone call. A helicopter went missing Saturday morning. 2 souls on board. We immediately launched. We launched a small boat, we launched a Coast Guard cutter, we launched an airplane C-144 from Mobile, we launched a helicopter from right here in New Orleans, and we searched. And we searched nonstop for 68 hours. And only yesterday afternoon, we had to make the difficult decision to suspend operations. We found some of the wreckage, saw some debris field in the water, but were unable to locate those 2 men. That was our weekend. So, this morning I want to introduce you a little bit to the Coast Guard. I know many are familiar with the Coast Guard, but I hope to give you a little bit more and maybe teach you a little bit something, maybe something you don't know about us, and tell you a little bit about the people that do this important work every day. They're your neighbors. So our roots go way back to 1790. Alexander Hamilton, first Secretary of Treasury, created the Revenue Cutter Service to go out and create some funds for this young country. That's where we trace our roots. And we are a military service. We're the only one that's not Department of Defense. We are a Department of Homeland Security. But we find every single U.S. war. In fact, the photos here are of Lieutenant Jimmy Crotty, who was in the Philippines, the start of World War II, right after Pearl Harbor was attacked, and the Japanese were in the Philippines. Lieutenant Crotty, a Coast Guard lieutenant, was put into a march, like many others, put in a death camp and died over there. Buried in a mass grave, but very fortunate that last month, the Defense POW and MIA accounting agency located his remains and he was flown home. So just last month, we see these photos. We had a tribute, paid a tribute to service with Jimmy's family and brought him home. You might be surprised to know that right now we have people serving overseas, and more about that in just a moment. There is no other agency like the Coast Guard. We are a unique multi-mission service. We are at all times and simultaneously a law enforcement agency, a member of the military, we're a humanitarian service, we're an emergency responder, and we're a regulatory agency. We're also a member of the nation's intelligence community. We're relatively small. We have a diverse set of responsibilities. That includes 11 statutory missions. And to illustrate these missions, I thought I'd go through and just highlight some of the operations that are going around the globe right now. Many people do not realize that at this very moment, as we sit here enjoying our breakfast, there are hundreds of Coast Guard men and women deployed and stationed overseas with other DoD men and women. As both a law enforcement agency and a military service, we are uniquely positioned to help the Department of Defense in certain operations. Patrol Forces Southwest Asia is the largest U.S. Coast Guard unit outside the continental United States. There are hundreds of people with 6 Coast Guard cutters that have been deployed overseas since 2002, doing important security work in and around the Persian Gulf with the U.S. Navy. That area of the world is covered by the Central CENTCOM, and we support them very closely. So just last Thursday, I put a photo of the media report, the headline. It's a little bit sensitive, but that was in the press. The media reported that a boarding team that consisted of Coast Guard and Navy members boarded a vessel and found a significant cache of suspected Iranian-guided missile parts that were on their way into Yemen for the rebels fighting there. That's last Thursday. Coast Guard and Navy did that. This is dangerous work. 15 years ago, Petty Officer Nate Breckenthal, who was overseas doing this mission, approached one of these vessels with a boarding team, and when they got near the vessel, it detonated. It was a suicide attack on our forces, and Nate was killed. He made the ultimate sacrifice. Nate's a hero. He's a Coast Guard member. In addition to operating in the Persian Gulf, some of you might be surprised to learn that just last month, the Coast Guard cutter Stratton was operating in the Western Pacific, far, far, far from U.S. shores. They completed a 162-day patrol over there, and they were operating in the LOC between China and North Korea. What's your Coast Guard doing over there? They were enforcing United Nations Security Council resolution, the sanctions against North Korea, because they had been engaging in illicit ship-to-ship transfers of goods. Coast Guard was over there helping enforce those sanctions. The young woman shown in this photo was Fireman Zheng. She's from China. She happened to find herself, after she joined the Coast Guard, on board the Stratton, where her Mandarin Chinese skills came in very, very handy for the crew of the Stratton, because we are shadowed every single moment we're there. We have Chinese Coast Guard right on our hip, watching every move we make. She was able to help us talk to them to make sure that no one misunderstood our actions and we didn't misunderstand their actions. Many of you know that we do work all over the world combating drug trafficking. But the extent of our efforts to combat transnational criminal organizations might surprise you. Last year, your Coast Guard removed 208 tons of pure cocaine. 208 tons of pure cocaine. That's enough to fill 17 to 20 dump trucks. And it's worth about $6 billion. That's what we seized last year on the water. Our interdictions are coordinated with what we call Joint Interagency Task Force itself. And working with JIATF itself, we seized, and our seizures account for more than 4 times the amount of drugs seized by, the amount of cocaine seized by every other border, every other federal agency, every other state agency combined. 4 times more than all the other drugs seized combined. And the Coast Guard and JIATF accomplished this with a budget consisting of less than 2% of the overall U.S. drug control budget. I know we got a lot of bankers in here. I'm not a business major, but I think I can look at the value of the return on that investment. 2% of the budget, 4 times the return of everything else combined. Why is this important? Well, it's important because, obviously, public health and safety. It's 200 tons of cocaine that's not in our streets and not in your neighborhood. But, and if we don't think that cocaine's dangerous, last year alone, 16,000 overdose deaths in this country involve cocaine. 16,000 deaths from cocaine last year in the United States. That's not important enough. Just know that by seizing these drugs, we prevented $6 billion from flowing back to these bad people, these transnational criminal organizations. And make no mistake about it, the money the cartels make, it triggers violence, it triggers extortion, it triggers corruption, it triggers instability in the countries to our south. And it drives families from their homes and sends them elsewhere seeking safe haven. They use this money to first diversify their operations, and they smuggle methamphetamines, they smuggle opioids, they smuggle people. They do a lot of bad things with it. So we push our borders out. We're operating about 1,500 miles off the coast of Central and South America, and we attack them where they're most vulnerable, where the loads are big, tons of cocaine, and we take them down. Unfortunately, we don't have enough coverage to do all of the operations that we know we should be doing out there. We're resource constrained like everybody else. We only have a handful of ships. It's a really big ocean. Think about trying to patrol the entire continental United States with a handful of squad cars. That's what we're trying to do out there today. Many people are surprised to learn that we're fighting illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing all around the globe. It poses a great threat to our fish stocks. Thousands of tons of fish worth billions of dollars is legally seized every year, illegally caught. And estimate that up to 30% of all the fish caught are done so illegally. This is severely depleting the stocks in the world and negatively impacting food security in a lot of developing nations. Earlier this year, the cutter Mellon, Coast Guard cutter, sailed about 19,000 miles around the world, all over, and boarded 45 big fishing vessels were out there fishing, from China, Panama, South Korea, and they cited over 70 enforcement issues, 70 things that they were doing illegally. That's your Coast Guard. Many people don't realize the Coast Guard is the sole provider of the nation's polar ice-breaking capability. We are the nation's maritime surface presence in the high latitudes, both the Arctic and the Antarctic. 2 weeks ago, Tuesday, right before Thanksgiving, Polar Star left its home port in Seattle. 175 of our families said goodbye to their loved ones and their friends and headed south thousands of miles to go down to Antarctica, Operation Deep Freeze, where they will break through miles of multi-year ice up to 21 feet thick to get into the United States station down there called McMurdo. We do that so that we can have ships come in behind us with fuel and supplies that allow that station to remain manned and operate year-round due to the critical missions that they do down there. Polar Star is the only U.S. icebreaker. Russia has over 50. China's building a fleet today. Russia and China have said that the Arctic is a strategic priority for them due to the resources, oil, gas, minerals that are up there, fish. Fortunately for us, last year Congress appropriated $655 million for us to start building the Polar Security Cover. We need a fleet of these to replace this, and that will allow the U.S. to maintain our presence up in the Arctic and the Antarctic. Without presence, we can't exert influence, we can't exert leadership. We have to be there to counter our other peers. It is a competitive space. Moving closer to home now. We divide the country into territories and districts. That's for Coast Guard operation and command and control. I have the honor and privilege to be down here in District 8, which is the large light blue area there on the map. As Dennis said, all are part of 26 states, ranging from 900 miles along the Gulf Coast, bordered by the Rockies and the Appalachians, and then heading north up to North Dakota. And really, that covers all the river system, which I'll talk about in a minute. We have about 4,000 active duty and civilian members spread across the district. Are assigned to 110 different units. Some of the larger units we call sectors. Those are outlined in red in that map. There's 7 of those. We have 4 air stations. We have 44 cutters. We have 17 small one stations. And we have 15 ace and navigation teams that go out and take care of ace and navigation. And we also have about 20 other marine safety units spread throughout this region. The insert at the bottom right, you're not meant to read all that, but those are names of units. You can see a lot of the Coast Guard is heavily concentrated right here in this part of the Gulf. Because it's important. It's important in the United States because we are a maritime nation. We are a maritime nation. We've always been a maritime nation. We've been endowed with a valuable gift. That gift consists of 95,000 miles of coastline, 25,000 miles of inland waterways that span from the sandy beaches in Florida all the way up to the ice of the Great Lakes. And that system connects 360 ports around the country and gives us unfettered access to 2 of the world's greatest oceans. And this system is marked with 50,000 ace in navigation that allows thousands of vessels to move safely and securely every second of every day. And in doing so, they move tons and tons of cargo and people efficiently. And the system helps support $5.4 trillion of economic activity in this country every year. That's a T. $5.4 trillion, and it supports 30 million U.S. jobs. That's what the system does for this country. It is a gift to us. Many nations are quite envious that we have this gift. The Coast Guard helps keep the system, these waterways, open for American business. That's what we do. And keeping this system safe and secure and prosperous is a huge part of the Coast Guard responsibilities down here in DE8. Let me just briefly talk about some of our operations here locally. We perform search and rescue, other forms of response all across the area. As you know, Mother Nature often gives us quite a pounding in this part of the country. And we deploy our flood punts, we deploy our helicopters, we get out there and we save people. That's what we do. Some of these photos are from Tropical Storm Imelda this summer, which happened right after I arrived, kind of my introduction. Not a big storm. Predicted 10 inches of rain. That's what we told. We're going to have 10 inches of rain. Sounds like a lot to me, but this area, I guess you get that. Turned out to be 42 inches of rain on top of Port Arthur and some regions of Houston. We were there, we were ready, we leaned in, we launched our flood punts right away. We saved 80 people using our small shallow water boats, and we plucked another 50 using our helicopters. And the 50 they really needed help. They were otherwise, there were dire consequences for them if we didn't save them. That's what we do. Sometimes the events aren't caused by Mother Nature, they're man-made, but we're there. We respond to collisions between vessels, like the one carrying, barges carrying reformate that collided with a vessel loaded with liquefied natural gas. We respond to vessel groundings, we respond to fires, oil spills, like the one ITC refinery in Houston. Huge fire, but also thousands of barrels of contaminated oil water, chemicals in water, got into the waterway. We were there. Respond to Greenpeace. They went up and had an operation off the Fred Hartman Bridge, lowered themselves, shut down the ship channel. We were there. Regardless of the cause or initiating event, your Coast Guard is prepared to respond. We minimize the consequences, and then we try and get back to business and facilitate recovery. Way out in the Gulf of Mexico, where Coast Guard men and our cutters, small boats, or different types of vessels, including fishing vessels, recreational vessels, encounter illegal drug operations. We execute patrols just to make sure that things stay secure. We also guard against illegal incursions of our exclusive economic zone. We protect our sovereignty, our border. Today we see a good number of Mexican, we call them launches, like that scoot across the border into U.S. waters to legally fish and do other things. They catch tons of our fish. Redfish, shark, and other non-migratory species because the waters off Mexico have been depleted. In addition to responding to storms and accidents, we try and conduct operations that will prevent bad things from happening. We inspect vessels and facilities to confirm compliance with U.S. laws, international treaties, regulations, and we assess their compliance. Our buoy tenders, most of which are over 50 years old, 50-year-old ships, they constantly work to mark the good water and provide guidance to mariners so they can safely navigate. Here's a 1-minute video to show you some of that work.
On the Cypress, we know the meaning of hard work. Day in, day out, from sun up to sundown. The sea pushes hard, and so do we. The sea doesn't stop on the weekend, neither do we. Working buoys ain't easy, but we don't do it because it's easy. We do it for our neighbors, for the families who rely on the waterways being safe and open, and we do it with sweat, determination, and grit.
So in total and on average, each year in District 8, we conduct almost 8,000 search and rescue missions, and we save almost 700 lives. 8,000 cases, 700 lives. So I lined up some people that I want to introduce you again. There are people, we have the best people, proud to say it, across the service, across the country, that volunteer to serve and devote themselves and give back to their country by serving in uniform and our civilian capacity. You're going to see a picture of Cole Perkins. Cole Perkins works in Mobile. He's at the air station there. Cole deployed a couple months ago in the back of the aircraft. His job is to operate the radios back there. Cole was flying. They launched the case because a man had departed in his boat. He left a suicide note for his wife, and off he went to go kill himself on his boat. We launched to go look for this man. Cole got on the radio with him and was able to talk to him and spent 3 hours talking to this man and connecting with him and listening to him. And was able to talk to him and coax him to come back home, coaxed him in, and got him some help and treatment. Cole saved his life. No doubt about it. Cole's a hero. Petty Officer Justin Toro. Justin serves right here in New Orleans on the Pamlico, which is one of our cutters. Justin's a cook. Cook's an important job aboard the cutter. If you don't have a good cook, you've got some morale issues. But Justin does so much more than cook. Justin is devoted. He wanted to do what everyone else does. He qualified to work on other parts of the cutter, where he's out on deck working those buoys, working hard, in addition to cooking. He is a true shipmate and a true servant leader to him, to the crew, and others around him. Justin and Michael is a hero. Zach Edwards. Zach and his beautiful bride got married on the beach last summer. They were taking photos, great time. Zach looks out and sees some kids struggling in the water. They got caught in a rip and off they went. Zach could see one that was starting to go under. Zach beat feet into the water, swam out there, grabbed his kid, teenager. And the teenager said, "Zach saved my life." Quite a wedding story. Meet Ethan McKenzie. He serves right here at Air Station New Orleans. Ethan's a rusty swimmer. He's one of those crazy guys that jumps out of the back of a perfectly good helicopter in the middle of a storm to try and save someone's life. He's done 6 CSAR cases. He's a hero. But on top of that, he's a volunteer in the community. He volunteers in the school. He's helping educate kids. He's helping to set the example. He volunteers regularly, hours and hours, to help kids understand what their opportunities might be. And he's connected with them. He's having a real impact on the community. Ethan's a real-life hero for us. Meet John Ware. John serves right here in New Orleans at the Marine Safety and Security Team. He's a gunner's mate. This is a high-end team for law enforcement, and John's responsible for training all his crew. That's what he does. He takes it very, very seriously. He was deployed for 64 days, yet he managed to be a part of the community. He volunteered, helped coach his son's football team, and connected with these young men on the football team there in Jefferson Parish. It had a real impact on those around him. And he's going to be retiring. He's staying right here. You're getting a good one. He's staying in New Orleans. I think he's going to be working here at the port. I think he already took a job. Patrick Wells. Patrick serves Station Dolphin Island. One day this summer they had torrential downpours like you see around here. And he was on his way home from work and he passed a car that had gone off the road, flipped upside down, and was in the water. Patrick quickly scrambled, got towards the car, couldn't see if anybody was in it, but could hear someone in there screaming. Poor woman was struggling to breathe. Patrick quickly got a crowbar, smashed windows, got that woman out, dragged her to shore, got EMT there, and got her help. He saved her life, no doubt about it. Captain Christy Luttrell, sitting right here. Christy, she's the commander of Sector New Orleans. We'll talk about those sectors. Christy's a captain of port, a federal on-scene coordinator, officer in charge of marine inspection, and Federal Maritime Security Coordinator for this region. She is responsible for the water from the sea buoy all the way up to mile 300, and then has about 60 miles of the ICW as well. If you took all the port activity that happens in that area, and you added it up, it's about the 4th largest port in the world. That's what Christy does every day with her team, her talented team. She keeps it safe, thriving, and allows it to prosper. Captain Luttrell, these other talented men and women, did not sign up and join the Coast Guard to get rich. That's for sure. They signed up, and they're heroes because they're humble servant leaders. That's what they do. And together with their families, they make tremendous sacrifices for the country.
I am a Coast Guardsman.
I serve the people of the United States.
I will protect them.
I will defend them.
I will save them.
I am their shield.
For them, I am super paratus.
I live the Coast Guard core values.
I am proud to be a Coast Guardsman.
We are.
We are.
We are.
I think it's probably a good time to maybe take some questions if you're ready, Dennis.
Thank you so much, Admiral. In keeping with BGR tradition, we do have a few questions from the audience. First of all, can you tell us about the Coast Guard's role in the 2019 flood fight on the Mississippi River and what lessons you carry forward from that event?
That's quite an event. In fact, I told, I don't know if you knew Admiral Paul Thomas, the great leader I relieved, I told him I wouldn't relieve him until he solved that problem. And he managed to do it somehow, because the waters were receding by the time I came down. What I learned from that immediately was that we went from high water, and I thought, okay, that's done now. But no, immediately we had groundings, record groundings from toads going up and down the rivers. What I learned here is that though the water's down, the bottom moved. So we have to relearn the entire river and all those waterways. And we had to do a lot of emergency dredging, and that this is a team sport. That industry members, industry leaders, together with the Army Corps of Engineers, together with our Coast Guard captains of the port along the waterway, coming together, it's the only way to manage that waterway. And in fact, industry provides critical input to us to help us develop good guidelines and rules of operation so that we can continue, because it's important to everybody that we keep traffic going. And we do have a hiccup, like we have a hiccup right now over the Gulf of the Coastal Waterway off the coast of Texas. Thankfully, guys like Jim Stark with GEICA come in to help us manage that. We have restrictions in traffic to help us manage it.
What kinds of procedures are in place to ensure that ships coming upriver or just passing through the port don't pose some kind of a threat to the city, to the bridges, that kind of thing?
We take security very, very seriously. And I'd say it starts far, far away from our shores, where we have operations in place to assess security in other ports, so that before ships even depart, we're already getting some sense for what is the threat that ship might pose to us. We're assessing the crew, we're assessing the background of that ship, we're assessing the operator of that ship, and we kind of do a scan and do assessment. What threat every ship poses to us, and then we take appropriate actions. And when they arrive at the shore, sometimes we tell those ships to hold off. We exercise authority that Christie has, and we'll go out and do a boarding on that ship. Again, so there's a wide range of menu of operations that we can use, but every single ship's assessed, and then appropriate actions are taken.
Do they provide a list of the cargo and that kind of thing before?
Yes. Yes, they're required to provide us what's on board, the last 5 ports, name of every crew member, and all that information is used to screen and determine the threat that ship might pose to us.
What kind of a security challenge does the Port of New Orleans represent for you today?
Christie's probably better suited to answer that question. I think, though, speaking to every large port, the challenge we see today is that there's an increasing activity. You know, the waterways generally are pretty fixed. You got a certain depth, a certain breadth. River's not getting any wider generally. You're usually not getting much deeper. So you only have so much capacity in the waterway. Yet we're trying to pump more and more and more activity into a fixed system. So our challenge is to manage all that activity, deconflict, and also things are getting more complex. Just like everything else in the world. The rate of change, the pace of change. When I was learning how to be a marine inspector, it was a pretty simple world. Today, it's not so simple. There's things out there, it's just really hard to get your head around. So we're faced with the complexity of the world around us and technology. We're faced with more and more increasing demand on a fixed waterway. And I think the public expectations on us all, is increasing. Both from an environmental perspective, there's things we used to do out there that you don't do today. And anybody who operates in the industry knows what I'm talking about. If you look at the global conversation today about shipping and regulations and facility operations, it's consumed by environmental aspects. The public expects us to reduce the environmental impact, the environmental footprint, to zero. So that's an increasing demand on a fixed system that's growing more and more complex.
And in the security area, are you coordinating with the FBI and local authorities and that sort of thing? How does that work?
Yes, absolutely. We're tied with all the other federal partners. There's multiple venues where we work together with them. We each have different authorities, we each have different assets, we each have different capabilities. And the only way to effectively operate is to come together. And we do that mostly, at Christie's level, the captain's port. They bring together all the port partners and work through these joint planning sessions, joint exercises, and make sure that we're prepared for whatever the event might come.
A member of the audience asks, are there efforts underway by the Coast Guard to lead in water safety, to educate the public basically about better water safety?
That's one of our 11 missions. I think we're talking recreation and boating safety. It is one of our 11 missions. We're fortunate. We probably have the best volunteer workforce that I've ever seen. We have about 25,000 volunteers, the Coast Guard Auxiliary. I don't know if we've got any members in here, but the Coast Guard Auxiliary, they volunteer and they largely do that outreach and education for us. They're all over the country. They get in schools, they get with different boating organizations to help them understand what the requirements are, and two, just educate them on life jacket wearing and basic boating safety. Because we do lose, on some of the order of 6,000 to 7,000 people a year die in recreational boating accidents. A lot of those are due to drinking, boating under the influence of alcohol. And so that is a continual battle for us that we do deal with that.
How would designating cartels as terrorist organizations help in drug enforcement activity by the Coast Guard?
How can what agency?
Designating cartels as terrorist organizations, how would that help your drug enforcement activity?
I don't know that we have designated them as terrorists.
If they were designated, would that help?
That's a great question. That's a little bit outside my wheelhouse. I would say that there's certainly really bad people. We know that about them. And I alluded to the fact that big ocean out there, we have knowledge of we think about 80% of the operations that are ongoing, but we only have the resources to tackle 15 to 20% of that. So, you know all this is going on, but we can only get after that piece of it. So it's very strategic sometimes to understand which ones we want to go after and understand the networks that are behind those operations so that you have to be smart about how you go after that.
Are you using drones at all in your enforcement activities?
We are. You know, that's technology. We're always trying to come up with better ways to do what we do, particularly when you're resource constrained. We are now flying, we have called MQ-9s, they're bigger, it's a different level. We have some bigger ones that we fly with the Border Patrol, CBP, that we fly in different areas, mainly around the U.S. border. Sometimes they might deploy. Then we have some smaller ones. They're a scan eagle. They're like this big. It's a fixed wing, and we launch them off the back of our ships. And that's pretty cool. You know, we've gone from when I was on a ship 30 years ago doing counter-drug efforts. We just kind of steam around to give you, say, here's your box on the map. And you just steam around your box and you look for something to do. You're always looking for a vessel, and then you see one. You hop in a small boat, you tell them to stop, and you chase them, and hopefully they stop, but often they wouldn't. They just, off they go. You wouldn't get them. And maybe over your whole 2-year assignment, you might get one bust. I felt pretty good about that. Today, I showed a picture of the cutter. They're out there. One, the cutter is far more capable, brand new. They have information that we didn't have. They have 3 boats that go about 40 knots. They have an armed helicopter on board. And they have a drone, UAV, that they fly. So it looks more like this today. They have good intelligence, good information, know where to be. They launch that drone. It flies, you can't hear it, you can't see it. It has live video feed. They can videotape that drug runner as he's coming in. They can watch the people on board. There's 3 of them, one's going below to take a nap, he's coming up. Are they armed? And then when they're ready, they launch their helicopter. Helicopter shoots off over the horizon. It's got a gunner in the back. These gunners are really good. That boat doesn't want to stop, and they typically don't. They shoot out the engines. Shoot out the engines, and you picture this, a chase out over the ocean. Helicopter hovering over this boat, the gunner in the back, and he shoots out the engine. It's about 95% success rate, 98%. Rarely does anybody get injured, and they put a 50 caliber round right through those outboard engines. It's like that. It's amazing. That's the technology we're using today. And then we have 3 small boats on board we can launch. They go 40 knots as well, and they can cruise up there and keep up with these guys today. But that's how we're using technology.
A member of the audience asks, how is the Coast Guard working with the city of New Orleans, if at all, to get the Algiers ferry back in service, and what are major challenges to making that happen? The Algiers ferry, yeah.
You know, I'll probably take a pass on that again. It's not my Christy, I can say that in general, we work very closely with all partners to make sure that everyone's doing their role. Our role is to make sure the vessels are safe. That's what we do. And sometimes that gets hard. We got to hold people accountable, but we need to make sure that every vessel out there that's operating commercially meets the minimum federal standards. That's what we do. And we're always there to work with our partners to try and make sure that we accomplish that with minimal impact to operations.
What about cybersecurity threats in the 8th District, and how is the district working with ports and the maritime industry to address those threats?
Cyber is that's a great question. Cyber is new battle space. Every day, I think it was on the news this morning, heard about it yesterday, where Panama City or Pensacola? One of the two guys.
Pensacola, I think, yeah.
Pensacola got
shooting
hit.
took place.
We heard about that yesterday. We are in the cyber fight. We stood up a Coast Guard Cyber Command that is now resourced, and it's modeled after the Department of Defense Cyber Command. In fact, we are embedded with them in many aspects. When I talk about our operations around the globe and the unique set of authorities the Coast Guard has, that translates right into the cyber world. So we're able to do things and operate in the cyber world in ways that maybe DoD cannot, in ways that other state agencies cannot. So we are exercising that and growing that capability, and the Department of Homeland Security is really investing in the Coast Guard because, during the elections, we had Coast Guard members embedded at the state level helping do operations to keep things secure. Imagine that. We have people working again at DoD. We have people sometimes deployed. So we look at it, we protect our own networks because, like you, we're often being attacked every single day. So we have people embedded to protect our own networks. We're also looking to make offensive capability so we can get after some of these other groups, these TCOs, these criminal organizations, using cyber effects. And then we look at the system, marine transportation system, the ports, and how do we help? And we help by establishing regulations and standards that everyone has to meet. We're working on that. And then we have this capability, so when there is an incident, they can deploy. I think it's evolving a little bit. Mainly our capability when we deploy will be to support Christie and others like her. There's a cyber incident that shuts down the port. I talk about whether it's man-made or natural. I don't care how the oil gets in the water. We got to go clean it up. We got to deal with that. So if you envision a cyber incident that leads to some of the same effects that we see, we're going to be there to support Christie. And we're going to have to ask the operator, the industry that's involved, to help show us that they have taken appropriate actions to prevent this from happening again. And that's where our cyber experts will come in to help us assess what actions are underway to make sure that we protect the waterway from everybody.
I wanted to ask you about that Pensacola shooting. Your situation may be entirely different. That was allegedly by a trainee from Saudi Arabia. But did that shooting set off any alarms for you, cause you to think about any ways to tighten up your security, that kind of thing?
Oh, I think all of us, that came right on the heels of another shooting, and I think all of us, definitely. We had several Coast Guard members there training at flight school that were right nearby when that happened. We have Coast Guard cutters that tie up right there in Pensacola. They were there as well. It caused us to pause. We'll stand by to see what the investigation reveals. But we do training all over the world. We have training teams. We have people in Saudi Arabia. Saudis bought some Coast Guard, bought some ships very similar to what we operate. And then we're over there deployed, helping them, teach them how to operate, how to maintain these capabilities. We're all over the world doing this. So it obviously is it's a wake-up call, reminder of the threats that are out there, and to always be ready.
Can you give us an update on the upgrade to the industrial canal?
On the what?
The industrial canal upgrade.
I can't. Christy?
It's actually sort of the Army Corps. It's probably better that the Army Corps answer that question.
Yeah, okay. Member of the audience asks, Donald Faust asks, are there concerns that the Coast Guard funds will be cut in order to help build the wall for border security?
I'm not aware of any of our funding, or I'm not aware of how any Coast Guard funds have been impacted by that. It's obviously been a priority for the administration, and we continue to support it. Again, we're in Homeland Security. Something I will mention, though, because it's tangentially related. Most of you will probably be surprised to know we had Coast Guard members deployed on the border when it flared up. We had the crisis on the border earlier this year. We've been in Homeland Security since the start. 22 different agencies that came together. It's kind of interesting to watch. I've been since day one. So I've been watching the department, how it formed. As you get a little more senior, you get to see a little bit more how it works. It was interesting to see when Border Patrol, Customs Border Protection and Border Patrol had this huge surge of people arriving on the border. They were overwhelmed. They reached out to the Coast Guard and said, "Can you help?" And for us, that's not our mission. We're not on the border, like on the land border, we're on the water. But we rogered up, yes. So we had boats deployed down there that were operating in the Rio Grande River, and we had a helicopter down there that was flying over the border with CBP and Border Patrol. And then we had people stationed at these processing stations where they were processing. We had people that were there just to help, hand out food, process, take care of the migrants as they were coming across, working directly with Border Patrol. And we did that for a few months until things kind of settled down a little bit. It was quite successful. So for me, it was interesting to see that as a department, we were able to, one component, jump in and assist another component. I know that might sound, you might see here and go, what's the big deal? It's a pretty significant move for us to be able to shift forces from one component into another seamlessly and operate effectively, and overwhelmingly everyone thought it was a success. DoD's been doing that for a while now, but remember, DoD's been around a lot longer than Homeland Security.
Admiral, how has the growth in containerized cargo shipping and the size of cargo ships changed the way the 8th District carries out its work here in New Orleans and in other ports as well? The size of cargo ships and these huge containerized cargoes.
You know, it is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I said, bigger and bigger, more and more and more, just because the world demand is increasing. I think it's you look at the Panama Canal, increasing the throughput through the Panama Canal, that has transformed the East Coast, Eastern Seaboard. You see a lot of that. I think we're probably getting about as big as they're going to get for a little while, because I think some of the efficiencies, you start reaching the point where you're just not going to get more efficient than you are right now. But definitely the size of and the number of LNG ships, because of the shale gas and the plays that are coming now, the demand for LNG, I think we'll see more bigger and more LNG ships. Container, I'm not sure more, but you'll see the growth. Cruise ships continue to grow and grow and grow, and I think that's another area that will continue to grow.
What steps should state and local policymakers be taking to manage future growth in cargo movement to and from the Mississippi and the other waterways?
Well, I'm not a policymaker. I hate to give advice to those smart people. But I think it's just to look out around the world and see, again, the amount of change, the rate of change, and what that means to us. I try and remind people again, as I said, we are a maritime nation. We are a maritime nation. It's a competitive world out there. If you look at what China's doing all around the world, the influence they have, it is big. It's really big. If you listen to the big thinkers in the Department of Defense, they're focused on China. The influence they have around the world, the influence they have here. Kind of scary. We have to, I think, globally, we have to start thinking more strategically about how we operate and how do we secure and ensure that we continue to have the freedom of operation that we so enjoy today, and that the system continues to be healthy and prosperous. That's a problem set for all of us.
Close to a third of the nation's oil and gas moves through Port Fourchon. Is that a special area of security concern for you, and how are you addressing that?
So Fourchon, definitely an important area. Look at the loop down there. Had the opportunity to go out and visit here a couple months ago, my first time, go out to the loop and see just exactly what they're doing. Because of course now they're built as an import facility. That's how much the world's changed, right? You had the loop established so we could import a steady stream of oil and provide it to refineries here. Today, they've switched the check valve on that sucker, so now they can export millions of barrels of oil. Just completely changed. When I was working 2006, 2005, we were building a huge push to build import facilities for LNG. Deep water ports. Overnight, it changed. Fracking, shale, you name it. Now, these same facilities are now being built to export LNG. It's changed overnight, and it's not just Fourchon. When I travel all the way down to Brownsville, the amount of activity, it's a buzz in the air. Billions of dollars being invested all along the waterfront to capitalize on this. And it's just an amazing time, I think, for the United States. It's changed global politics. And just in my career, to watch what we've gone through, And today, what, when you saw the Saudi refinery get attacked and what that did to the Saudi output, barely broke squelch here, Price of gas didn't move on our pumps. That says a lot. Had that been a few years ago, we would have felt that. Today, we're secure. We're really capitalizing from this opportunity.
Admiral, thank you so much. That's all the time we have for questions.
All right. Thank you all. Hopefully learn a little bit about the Coast Guard. If you want to join, come on down, we'll take it. In all seriousness, know the Coast Guard is there. They're embedded in your neighborhood. You may not see them every day. They're living right next to you, and they're really good people. And I am proud to have the privilege every single day to serve alongside them. So thank you for your time. Greatly appreciate it.